Hello and welcome to the 15th episode of Tuesday Talks with Pallavi. I'm Pallavi, a communication and leadership coach, a trauma informed practitioner, and an advocate of nonviolent communication. Every week, we pause to explore the human side of communication, not just what we say, but why we say it, how we react, and what helps us build deeper, healthier, and more compassionate relationships. Today's conversation isn't about psychology. It isn't about diagnosing people. And it certainly isn't about making excuses for hurtful behavior. It's about looking at human behavior through a different lens, a more compassionate one. Because let's be honest, we live in an age where we've never communicated more. We have emails, instant messaging, WhatsApp, social media, video calls, and AI. We are constantly connected. And yet, many people feel profoundly disconnected. What an irony. People tell me they don't feel heard. Feedback feels like criticism. Disagreements quickly become arguments. Families stop talking to one another. Teams become divided. Friendships quietly drift apart. So perhaps our biggest challenge today isn't communication itself. Perhaps it's that many of us are trying to communicate while carrying stress, overwhelm, grief, anxiety, old hurts, and nervous systems that rarely got a chance to truly feel safe. And that's where trauma informed communication becomes so relevant. Not because everyone has experienced trauma in the clinical sense, but because every one of us has experienced moments that have shaped how we respond to conflict, criticism, rejection, disappointment, and relationships. Trauma informed communication invites us to ask a different question. So instead of asking, "What's wrong with this person?" we gently begin asking, "What might have happened to this person?" Or perhaps an even kinder question, "What might this person's nervous system be trying to protect right now?" That single shift moves us from judgment to curiosity, and curiosity opens the door to connection. Now, what does it mean to look at behavior through this lens? Think about the people you interact with every day. The colleague who becomes defensive the moment they receive feedback, the employee who never speaks during meetings, the friend who disappears whenever there is conflict or a hard conversation, the family member who has this urge to control every situation and every conversation, or the person who agrees with everyone and says yes to everything but silently carries resentment. Our instinct is to label people. Oh, they are difficult, they are rude, they are lazy, they are too emotional, they are so dramatic, they are manipulative. But trauma informed communication invites us to pause before we label. What if these behaviors are not simply personality traits? What if they are ways the nervous system has learned to stay safe? Perhaps anger protects someone from feeling vulnerable. Perhaps silence protects someone from being judged. Perhaps avoiding conflict once helped someone survive difficult relationships. Perhaps pleasing everyone else once felt safer than expressing their own needs. Understanding this doesn't mean we excuse harmful behavior. Boundaries still matter. Accountability still matters. But Understanding allows us to respond with wisdom rather than assumption. Now, does this mean every difficult behavior is caused by trauma? No, there is an important distinction. Not every disagreement is a trauma response. Not every behavior comes from trauma. People are still responsible for their actions. Trauma informed communication isn't about diagnosing others. It's about becoming slower to judge and quicker to become curious. Sometimes we simply don't know what another person has lived through. And we don't need to know their entire story to treat them with dignity. Everything changes when we are curious because curiosity changes the quality of our listening. Instead of reacting to behavior, we begin paying more attention to the human side of that behavior. Now, there is a very important and a very powerful role that the nervous system of any one of us plays while we communicate with others. Communication isn't just an exchange of words, it's an exchange between two nervous systems. Before we hear each other, we are noticing tones, we are noticing the other person's body language, facial expressions, silence, pace, and so on and so forth. Our nervous system is constantly asking one simple question: am I safe here? When the answer is yes, we become more open, more creative, more thoughtful, more expressive, more compassionate. But when the answer is no, we become more protective of ourselves. We close, we interrupt, we withdraw, we defend, we shut down. The conversation changes, not because the words changed, but because the nervous system did not feel safe to express. Now, can we simply decide to communicate differently from tomorrow? I wish it were that simple. Communication habits are built over years, sometimes decades. The way we react under stress, the way we handle disagreements, the stories we immediately tell ourselves about other people's intentions. These patterns don't disappear because we just watched one video of Tuesday Talks with Pallavi, for instance, or read one book. Trauma informed communication is not a communication technique. It is a lifelong practice of awareness, awareness of our own triggers, awareness of what happens in our body before we react, awareness that someone else's behavior may be touching or triggering something painful inside of us, and awareness that our own behavior may also be triggering someone else's nervous system. This is not about becoming perfect communicators. It's about becoming more conscious communicators. There will be days when we pause before reacting. There will also be days when we don't. That's part of being human. Growth is not measured by not getting triggered ever. Growth is measured by how quickly we become aware, repair the relationship when needed, and learn from the experience. So, where do we begin? I'd like to leave you with just two simple practices this week. The first, the next time you feel yourself reacting strongly, pause and ask, what just got triggered in me? Not who's to blame, but why did this affect me so deeply? And the second, when someone else's behavior frustrates you, pause before labeling them and ask yourself, I wonder what they might be protecting, or I wonder what they might be going through. You may never know the answer, but that question itself will create space for empathy rather than judgment or assumption. Sometimes one deep breath, one pause, one moment of curiosity is enough to change the direction and also the energy of a conversation. I'd like to leave you with three questions this week. What gets triggered in me during difficult conversations? What might someone else's behavior be trying to protect? And what would help both of us feel just a little safer in this moment? Perhaps trauma informed communication doesn't begin with learning new words, new vocabulary. Perhaps it begins with learning to see ourselves and each other with a little more curiosity, a little less judgment. Thank you for joining me on Tuesday Talks with Pallavi. Until next Tuesday, stay curious, stay compassionate, and remember, every conversation has the potential to wound, but every conversation also has the potential to heal. Take care, stay safe, stay happy. Until next Tuesday.